Welcome back to the Eve approach. You find me in the VAB trying to put a cubic strut on the top of a rocket. Why? Well, that's because I'm putting one of these inflatable heat shields on the top because we are going to send a craft down to Eve, and it's a rocket and we would like the whole rocket to make it down. So why am I putting the heat shield on the top? Because I'm putting one on the bottom as well. Eve and inflatable heat shields, the aerodynamics is a little bit, shall we say, special. So anyway, you can see there, we've got a little craft there. And the aim in this mission is to do a sample return. I don't want to send a Kerbal just yet. I want to see if I can do a sample return. Get some samples off the surface. So we've got some science equipment around the bottom of that craft, and they've got a little section at the top there that will actually store the samples and everything like that. And we're going to take off. So this is probably the biggest launch vehicle we've put up yet. It has 4 of those side boosters we used, I think, in the previous episode. It's basically our first stage of our normal Eve launch craft. And then in the middle we have, well, it's not really a Saturn V, it's more like a Saturn 8. It's got 8 sort of big, I think are they mammoth engines in the middle there. So you can see, oh, I must say, the decoupling of those side boosters, not particularly impressive. I think the solids on them are very nice, but need more instant pow. So might be some small solids that fire quicker instead of long burn ones like that. Anyway, so this is the first stage, and I think we maybe overdid the first stage a little bit. Anyway, I'm able to put it into orbit on that first stage, and we have quite a lot of Delve left, in fact, on it. You can see there I'm opening some solar panels just to make sure that I'm getting some power. Now, I do think I have an RTG on the actual craft on the top there, but you always got to be safe just in case. So we've got some communication, things like that, and then we swing this craft around when it decides to do that. And we're going to use the maneuver planner tool thing to generate a maneuver to Eve. And of course, this obviously is going to take a year or so. I'm not going to force you to sit and watch us going for a year round the planet. Well, I shouldn't I? I should really make you just watch us spin around. You see there, this craft, it took an absolute age to turn. And what you saw there was I put away one of my solar panels and then I removed the fairing. I did that because, as you may have seen in past episodes, I have a problem with fairings damaging my solar panels in this series, in other series. So I put it away just in case there was a problem, so that only one of them would get destroyed. This time, nothing happened. So, obviously, hindsight, didn't need to do that. So we're just going to wait for this to spin around the planet there, and you can see what we're actually looking for. And I don't know if I've shown this on previous episodes. We want to be sort of ahead of Eve by you can actually see, there we go, we're approaching it now. We want to be ahead of Eve by, I always think it's sort of like about 45, 60 degrees. You can actually go and do a transfer planner window thing. It'll tell you the angle that you need to be behind or in front. We need to be in front of Eve because we're actually going to be we're going slower, but we're going to drop down into Eve. So Eve will catch up with this craft. And there we go. Yeah, anybody that's got epilepsy, thank you for that. Yeah, we really helped you there, didn't I? This thing is exceedingly ungainly. I didn't know if we were going to have that first stage in orbit. I actually overdid it a bit, and the first stage is, in reality, probably should have rebuilt this completely. I think we could have actually been a much better design, but this was sort of thrown together because the festive period is coming, of course, and everybody during the festive period has to see family and friends and all that sort of stuff and do extra work and earn money that your wife can spend on things that, anyway, we don't need to get into that. This is money and festive period. Anyway, we're going to launch our rocket. I don't know if did they have Christmas in Kerbin? I don't know. They'd have it like 4 times a year almost, well, for 4 times an Earth year, because the years are much smaller. But anyway, I digress. Is there a Kerbal Santa? I don't know if there is a Kerbal Santa, or Claus. I don't know. Mrs. Claus, Mrs. Kerbal. I don't know if there's such a thing. Anyway, we're doing our transfer. And you can see there we did a fire off those main engines, and that first stage has actually taken us on our transfer, but we do not seem to have an interaction. And this was a bit of an oddity for me, because I always think you miss your transfers a bit if you have a long burn, because you're not burning at the exact point. But that burn was really quick. I mean, it was a really quick burn, and it was pretty accurate. We were using the tool that keeps us, the SAS that keeps us actually on our maneuver node. So it's interesting that it was so out, and I'm wondering if anybody else has found similar things like this with the maneuver planner sort of tool built into stock, because it's not been giving me as good a transfers as maybe it should. It's almost as if there's a problem. One thing I do notice, though, if you actually spin around a planet waiting for that maneuver, the maneuver node migrates, which I think is quite interesting. I don't know if that's to do with the way that physics and things are done in Kerbin, I don't know. So we're going to put a second maneuver node in, and we're actually just trying to refine it there so that we get into a passing orbit of Eve. And what I'm looking for there is, I don't just want to get close to Eve. What I want is, I want my periaps to be on its equator. So you can see I could get really close, but I want my periaps on the equator because I want to put myself into an equatorial plane launch, primarily because if we're going to do any rendezvous or anything like that in future with this craft, if it comes back up, I want it equatorially just because it's easier. And so by putting my periaps on the equator, it means my apoaps, when I form it, will also be on the equator way out, and it means I can do a plane change as cheap as chips. So there we go, we do our little thing, and then those big engines probably not the best for refining small things like this. So yeah, what we should really do is, there we go, we'll get rid of that big stack of engines there, and we'll use this little transfer engine that was originally going to do the end of that burn, but obviously I've miscalculated in this. I'm not entirely sure why, but we'll talk about that later. And it's just going to do the final little refinement burn there, and there we go. And then I actually checked to see what we would need to be, and we wait about 200 days, and we enter the sphere of influence of Eve, and you can see there we're not really that close. For some reason I decided to open the inflatable heat shield. It makes it look like I've got some sort of mushroom on the end of my spacecraft. I don't know why I did that. I think maybe just to remind myself to do it, possibly. It's very easy when you've got heat shields at both ends to forget that you have heat shields at both ends. So there we go, we're going to do our little capture burn, and now we could capture to lower orbit. We could go into a circular orbit. We don't want to. We're going to capture just into orbit of Eve. And this actually, I think this orbit was about, I want to say it takes about 12 days or something like that. It probably says on the bottom there. So we're going to spend 9 days going up to our apoaps. But you can see our apoaps is almost in line with our descending node, which is perfect, because we can do our little burn change there. In actual fact, I've got even better than that. We've got our descending node before our apoapsis, so we can actually do our burn for the descending node, so we can go into the an equatorial plane, and then when I get to the apoapsis, I can do another burn to reduce our periapsis. So our periapsis comes down to our final target. We do 2 separate burns. Now, you can potentially do this in one burn. I could do this in one burn. It would probably be more efficient if I'm being really about the efficiency. But at this sort of distance, the amount of delta V required for these things is so small because we're so far out. We're on the very edge of the sphere of influence of Eve. And if we're using n-body physics at this point, this would be really quite interesting actually, because you've got all sorts of things going on. So there we go. Got that inclination change done. We're now pretty much inclined to 0, and now we're just going to rotate ourselves round to the retrograde. There we go. And I could wait until we get to the apoapsis, but that actually was going to take a few hours, so I thought let's just do it now while we're moving around, and we'll do that. And you can see, if you look on the bottom there, I'm just actually looking, I'm doing this manually, I'm looking at our periapsis and just going, when do I want to stop it? Yeah, 150, 200, probably be a nice sort of range to go for. So next thing is we basically have to go, and this is the problem with Eve and places like that, actually trying to get a maneuver node somewhere is a nightmare. So there we go, 14 days to that maneuver node. We're going to go all the way around, and it takes 14 days to go from that high point. So I think, yeah, we go. We went past it. Yeah, that's clever, isn't it? How did that happen? I'm not entirely sure. You can play the video back if you want and explain to me how we went past the accelerate to that point. I don't know how that happened. I'm sure I clicked on something that was incorrect, but I'm just glad that we didn't have our periaps within the atmosphere, which is what I was originally planning on doing. Otherwise, we would have had a very interesting situation there, because at that speed, oh, here we go, and we did it again there. You see, it's gone straight past that maneuver node, and is going to go on to the next one. So we've got that interesting thing again, where if you actually have time warp enabled at all, when you're playing with maneuver nodes or anything, it seems to put the maneuver node on the next orbit, even if it's at the future point of your current orbit. So it would be really interesting to know if that's a bug. And I will point out this is Kerbal 12.2, I believe, or 1.12.2. So not Kerbal 12. Whoa, we're not even at Kerbal KSP 2 yet, are we? So I don't know if that's been fixed in 1.12.3. It might be one of those glitches they fixed. Anyway, we're going to pull ourselves down into a circular orbit now, around about 150 kilometers up. And this is just basically, the important thing here is to remember I need a little bit of fuel just to pull myself out of orbit. So I'm keeping an eye on the fuel in this tank, keeping an eye on what we need to do to complete this. And we've got a nice chunk of fuel at the end there. I don't want to use any fuel from the craft that's going down there because it's going to need every single drop just to get back to orbit. So there we go. So we're now in orbit. Perfect. We're going to spin ourselves round to the far side because I want to land in the dark. No, I want to make sure that I land on the land. And I'm also aware that around where my opposite to where I am right now is somewhere where we've sent down the mobile base. The mobile base is down there with its science. I know roughly it's around there, and I want to see, you know, just sort of, I'm recording this, so it's actually quite handy if you're ever doing these things yourself. Record them if you can, because you can see sort of the speed at which this craft is going to slow down and where it actually lands compared to where you think it's going to land. So there we go. We're going to go through the atmosphere, and you can see a bit of heating building up there on the top and the bottom. If I do not put that inflatable heat shield on the top, then the way that the atmospheric drag is in Eve it will actually flip it round. So you can see there we're now basically killed off all. We're at 30 kilometers up, and we've killed off all of our basically our horizontal speed. I detach that top one first, and as it detaches, I want to fire my parachutes, and that keeps that drag high up. If I don't open the parachutes at that point, this craft will turn over and will be upside down. Now, you're saying, why haven't you still got the heat shield on the bottom? I've still got the heat shield on the bottom because it has such high drag that if I decouple it now, it will not go away. In fact, it could potentially go up into us because we're doing about 200 meters per second there. Once all of these come along, now we can get rid of it. And now what I would actually do is I use a little bit of the reaction wheel just to tilt the craft. You can see I'm wobbling the craft just because I would really like it if it landed not on top of that heat shield. Okay. We're getting some science in the sort of lower atmosphere there. We're doing one set of our science in the lower atmosphere, even though we've already gathered some in the past with our previous craft. We've got this and we can bring it back up for bonus points. And then we'll get the rest of the science when we're on the ground, okay? So we're just coming down, and this is just about, you know, be careful. Just let it go down. We're going to hit down just under 4 meters per second. A lot of things are hitting the ground around us. I think one of the heat shields, the first heat shield we released is gone. Not a perfect landing. We're on a bit of a wonk there, but we'll just check that the landing legs have got maximum strength on them, so we should be okay. One thing I found was, you can see this craft is slightly, oh, there we go, some other stuff. This craft is sort of wobbling. We're not wobbling, it's sliding. You do tend to slide on Eve a lot, I've noticed. And then we need to get rid of all of that extra weight. Thank you very much. We're going to transfer all of our stuff to, if we can find it, there we go. We've transferred all the science to our little science pod on the top there, and it is now time to go. So, fire those engines, get rid of all the landing gear. We don't need excess weight, everything's exploding. Then we get rid of the side tanks, and now it's just about going up. And you can see I'm trying to control the speed to around about 100 meters per second. I could probably go less. We're trying to reduce air resistance, actually. We want to try and get out of this thick atmosphere as quickly as possible because it's killing our engines. But we also want to not use up too much fuel fighting air resistance. So you've got to sort of balance it there. In hindsight, yeah, probably could have done this better, but I don't think it would have affected the overall result, primarily because, not to spoil anything, but I misread something when I was designing this rocket. Yeah, it seems I'd been doing some stuff with the moon, I think, and yeah, this is the wrong engine. This is a Terrier engine. This is a terrible engine. I think either I've missed a stage, or, more likely, I have actually misread something. So that Terrier engine's got enough delta V to basically put us in orbit. We've got loads of delta V there. We've got loads of delta V on the stage above. We needed a bigger engine, primarily. So yeah, this is a mission fail. This is my big mission fail for this series so far. Just to celebrate the festive season, I thought would be a brilliant idea. We'll fail. No, I really didn't want to fail the mission. So yeah, at this point I could fire the top one. There we go. But my thought at this point was maybe I can actually land it. Maybe we can not explode. No, we did not have that, and there we go, crashed. So yeah, the Eve approach will be returning, but not until next year. And I have some other series coming as well. So watch back all the other stuff in the festive season while you can. And until next time, have a great one.